live. Hello, everyone, and hello, Patrick.
Hello, Brian. Great to be here.
Thanks very much for joining us today. So we'll just give everyone just a moment or two to join, but hopefully that countdown has got everyone's juices flowing. The need to work on our kind of breath work because that kind of gets the heart rate going initially, doesn't it? So I'm sure you'll be able to kind of help us out with some
Or
methods
either
to calm
that
down our
to
breathing.
slow it down, one or the other. It depends really what we want to do with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Great stuff. I see lots of people joining, so I think I'll just kick off quickly. I'll just welcome everyone. So yeah, hello everyone. Welcome. This is the latest in our Work Well live webinar series. So if it's your first time joining, the goal of our Work Well webinars is to promote and share ideas and advice that can support in improving our own well-being and the well-being of our colleagues and our wider work environment. So the live webinars are just one part of the Work Well community. We also have the podcasts, we have blogs, we have a private forum, and we have an online education hub that's called the Work Well Institute. So all of the Work Well resources are curated through our free weekly Work Well newsletter. So if you go to workwellireland.ie, you can sign up to the mailing list there for free. Now, introducing our guest today. So Patrick McKeown is an international breathing expert and author based in Galway. Since 2002, he has worked with thousands of clients, including elite military special forces, Olympic coaches, and athletes. So Patrick's mission is to empower people to take control of their own health, well-being, and fitness. And that's by using simple breathing exercises proven to improve body oxygenation. So Patrick, how are you doing?
Good, Brian. Great to be here.
Great. A real privilege to have you here. I know you're incredibly well known internationally, but perhaps not as well known in Ireland. So hopefully we can kind of do something about that today and kind of share a bit of your work. I know you're going to present for a while, and then we'll take questions later on. We'll take questions during the session as well. If anyone wants to pop any questions, we're going out live we're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. If anyone wants to comment, put something in the comment section on whatever platform you're viewing on, and we'll see it here. I'll be able to share it with Patrick. And just let me know if you can hear us and see us as well. Let me know. I think Sheila was just saying initially you can't see, but now she can. So that's fantastic. So just thanks for letting us know. If everyone can let us know, just they can see and hear us okay, that would be great to get us started. So Patrick, I think you're gonna present for a while. Then we'll have some questions. And listen, Patrick, thanks again. Thanks so much for joining us. I know everyone's going to get so much value from this. So real pleasure to have you here today.
Sure. Great stuff, Brian. Hello, everybody. So what I would like to talk today about is about changing states. And it was about 30 years ago that I attended university. I did a degree called Business, Economic and Social Studies. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. And I entered the corporate world. But even though the company that I worked with, it was an American multinational, my issue was that I wasn't able to deal with the stress levels in that company. And I found it extremely distressing to some degrees, but dealing with staff, holding concentration and attention span, and also having energy levels to adequately deal with the workload. I came out of the university degree with a piece of paper, but I had no means to deal with stress, and I had no way of knowing the impact that my physiology was having on my work and how I was conducting myself in the workplace. I came across functional breathing back in 1997, 1998, and I switched from mouth to nose breathing. And I also learned to slow down my breathing to help downregulate, because I was an individual who was in an increased sympathetic stress response chronically. And I didn't have anxiety. I didn't suffer from panic disorders, but I had a racing mind. And even going through university, I remember my capacity to concentrate was always impacted, and it took me a lot of work to get through university. On one particular occasion, I was sitting in the Berkeley Library doing a refresher for an exam that was due to start in about 20 minutes. And I was joined by a friend of mine, Terry Clune. And Terry was setting up a business at the time, and he didn't have time to do any preparation for the exam. And he said, "Do you have your notes there?" And I said, "I do." I handed him my notes. And I remember him looking at my notes for 20 minutes. And I knew that he wasn't just looking at my notes, that he actually had his full attention on my notes. The two of us went off to the exam, and 3 months later, or whatever, when the results came out, he got the same result as I did. It took me 3 months to study for that exam, and it took him 20 minutes. Now, some people naturally have the capacity to hold attention and to concentrate. I had to develop mine. And if you think of the mind as the filter through which we experience all of life's events and how we interpret it, but yet we're not trained to stop thinking and we're not trained to concentrate. Education does not teach us how to concentrate, but in order to adequately get by with education, we need to have the capacity to hold attention. So this presentation is just looking at the physiology, and if you can take something out of it, whenever you're presented with a difficult situation, I would like you to be able to bring your attention inwards, and I would like you to be able to downregulate. Now I can show you how to upregulate or downregulate. And these tools, as Brian mentioned at the start, I do work with military, I do work with snipers, and I've even been brought in to work with snipers in terms of pulling the trigger. When is the right time to pull the trigger in harmony with the breath? Now, it's very simple if you understand a little bit about physiology. And the one thing about our breathing is that by changing our breathing patterns, we can change states. Now, what is concentration? Concentration is your capacity to hold your attention on one thing. And your attention span is the length of time that you can hold your attention on one thing. But if you have an individual with poor sleep, they are not going to be able to concentrate. Now, how many employees are waking up with a dry mouth in the morning, have snoring, have insomnia due to overstimulation of the mind, and may have obstructive sleep apnea? If you have sleep disorder breathing, it's going to impact your productivity, and it's going to impact your resilience, and it's going to impact your quality of life. So in terms of the hierarchy of needs, and I'll go to the presentation now. In terms of the hierarchy of needs, we have to revise Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And back in the day, Maslow's hierarchy of needs spoke about food, clothing, and shelter. And we don't need this for the modern individual. Most of us are lucky enough that we do have food, and we do have clothing, and we do have shelter. So we spoke about this earlier on. We spoke about focus, which is narrowing your attention to one thing. My focus for the last 20 years has been specifically on breathing. And that is what I've done for the last 20 years. And our instructors are across about 50 different countries. So we have 3,000 instructors who are trained. And I've got 9 books which are published in most of the major languages. So this has been my area of attention the last 20 years. And by doing that, of course, you can develop your skill set. As I said, concentration is your ability to hold your attention on one thing. How many of us have developed our concentration? And attention span is the length of time that you can hold your attention on one thing. And just as Terry Clune, just before we were going to do that exam, he was able to hold his attention on the notes for 20 minutes. Now, his mind may have wavered the odd time during that time, but it wavered a whole lot less than mine, because I could be looking at the notes, but my attention wouldn't have been on the notes. My attention was stuck in my head, and I would get to the bottom of the page and I wouldn't remember what I was after reading because I didn't have my attention on the text in the first instance. Now, if you think about success, and everybody has their own definition of success, but success is really about reaching your full potential, self-actualization, and it's very fulfilling to reach your full potential. There's no question about this. And how do you reach your full potential? Well, you need to narrow your attention to one thing and not to be scattered and not to have your attention all over the place. You need to be able to concentrate. You need to have a good attention span. And these are the ingredients of success. This is a take on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And as I said, for the modern individual, we have met the basic needs. But what we don't have is we don't have deep sleep. How many of you are waking up tired in the morning? How many of you have insomnia that you find it difficult to go to sleep at night? Or you're waking up at 3, 4, or 5 o'clock in the morning and you wake up in the middle of the night. You're not fully awake to get up, but you're not sleepy enough to get back to sleep. We should never be tired at 10 a.m. And I don't think we will achieve self-actualization and flow states unless we get deep sleep. Now, I know there's so many commentators talking about reaching that flow state, that state of mind, holding your attention, whereby you're in a state of relaxation and alertness at the same time. And time flies by, and the right action happens by itself. But we need deep sleep. So flow states are only achievable by people with good physiology, with balance of the autonomic nervous system. Following from deep sleep, we bring in invincible breathing. And what I mean by invincible breathing is functional breathing patterns, knowing how to improve blood flow to the brain, knowing how to down-regulate or up-regulate if you need to, knowing how to change your breathing patterns to change your physiology. And then we can bring in breath aware, because it's not just about training our breathing, but it's also about training the brain. Bring in body aware, bring in mind aware to achieve self-actualization. There is an interconnectedness between, of course, breathing, the emotions, and sleep. When we feel highly stressed, our breathing gets harder and faster. But if we have harder and faster breathing, the mind is going to be agitated. And if the mind is agitated, it's going to impact our sleep. And if we have poor sleep, it's going to agitate the mind. And if we have poor breathing, it's going to increase the risk of sleep disorder breathing. And the one thing that I want to put out there is that there is a myth out there that it's good to take the full big breath, breathe more air. Breathing more air actually deprives your brain of oxygen. Breathing more air than what your body needs, will reduce blood flow to the brain. And it doesn't just reduce blood flow to the brain, it reduces blood flow throughout the body. Your blood circulation is impacted by how fast and hard you breathe. And also, if you're breathing hard and fast and irregular breathing, it's going to put you into that increased stress response. So it's important knowing this, because there are many people, and I remember going into different situations, feeling stressed and intentionally taking these full big breaths in the belief that it was going to calm me down. It doesn't. Mindfulness, while wonderful, it's not going to work for the very person who needs it the most. Because if your physiology is off, you are not going to have the energy and the focus to hold your attention. We have to improve sleep quality first and improve breathing physiology. Then bring in mindfulness, bring in breath aware, bring in body aware, and bring in mind aware. And this goes back to the revised hierarchy of needs that we looked at earlier on. The first tool that I'm going to look at is a measurement of your functional breathing patterns, because how do you know if you're breathing well or not? And the BOLT score is the body oxygen level test. So what I would like you to do is I would like you to give this a go. I would like you to take a normal breath in and out through your nose, and pinch your nose with your fingers to stop breathing. And time it in seconds. How long does it take until you feel the first definite desire to breathe, or the first involuntary movement of your breathing muscles? When you resume breathing, your breathing at the end of the breath hold should be normal. Now, what's the significance of this? And this breath hold time, this is not the maximum length of time that you can hold your breath for. You have normal breathing beforehand, you exhale normally, you hold your breath, and you time it. How long does it take for the brain to send a definite desire to breathe? And when you let go, your breathing should be normal. And the significance of this is as follows. If your BOLT score is greater than 25 seconds, great. There is an 89% chance that your breathing is functional. But if your BOLT score is less than 25 seconds, now, if it's 22, 23, 21 seconds, listen, you're pretty close to it. But if your BOLT score is down around 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 seconds, there's definitely room for improvement. And the lower your BOLT score, the faster you breathe, the harder you breathe, the more likely you are to breathe upper chest. And this form of breathing pattern is going to put you into an increased sympathetic state, an increased stress response. Now, if we are in an increased stress response, we don't have resilience. And as I said earlier on, 30 years ago, When I first started working for an American multinational, I didn't have the capacity to cope. Now I did okay, but it could have been a lot easier. We are not trained when we come out of university, when we have a business degree, we are not trained to deal with stress. And it is very, very important that we have those tools. And in terms of harder and faster breathing, if you think of this, all it takes is 30 seconds of faster and harder breathing. And this can lower carbon dioxide in the blood by 50%. And carbon dioxide is not just that waste gas that people talk about. If you blow off too much carbon dioxide from the blood through the lungs, it has the effect of reducing blood flow to the brain by up to 40%. Because whenever we breathe hard and fast, the brain is interpreting that the body is under threat. And here's an example in real life. Dr. Rangan Chatterjee was talking to a brain surgeon, doing a podcast with him. And the title of that podcast is Life Lessons from a Brain Surgeon, May 26, 2021. And Dr. Rahul said, what I have learned from the operating room is that when I get into a tricky situation, the first thing I do is just prevent myself from hyperventilating. Of course, the good doctor knows this, but why doesn't everybody else? Why doesn't the corporate worker know this? How many workers get into a tricky situation and they respond with hyperventilation? Because hyperventilation is the natural reaction. Our body will naturally react to a difficult situation with faster and harder breathing, but that depends on our physiology. Some of us will react stronger than others, and our resilience is a measurement of how well we do when we are confronted with a challenging situation. The measure of a leader is not how well that person does when everything is going according to plan. The measure of a leader is how well they do when things are not going according to plan. But how many leaders that when there is a difficult situation, they respond with hyperventilating? Now, all hyperventilation means is that your breathing is a little bit faster and a little bit harder than what it should do. But how does the brain read this? Whenever you breathe faster and harder during rest and during sleep, the brain interprets that the body is under threat. And all the brain wants to do is to get you out of the situation, because the brain ultimately is here to protect the body. Now, if the brain wants you to get out of that situation, are you going to be calm? Are you going to come up with a good solution? You're not. So it's not a time for planning. It's a time for fight or flight. So always when we think about breathing, think of the exhalation. If you breathe out hard and fast, it's a stressor. But if you breathe out slow and relaxed, you're helping to bring the body and mind into relaxation. Now, you can do this in your own time. What is your attention span? So earlier on, I spoke that attention span is your ability to hold your attention and the length of time that you can hold your attention on one thing. Attention spans have decreased significantly in the last 15 years. And to give you an example, Microsoft did a study. Now, how thorough is this study? I don't know, but you will find it. It's called the Goldfish Study, and I'm sure many of you have heard of it. In 2002, Microsoft measured the attention span of about 3,000 Westerners, and they concluded that the attention span was 12 seconds. And they did the same study again in 2012, and attention span had reduced to 8 seconds. And they said that this is a problem because a goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds. An attention span of 9 seconds. Now, again, anybody who achieves good quality of work, they have the capacity to hold their attention on doing what they are doing. We cannot achieve good quality of work if we are not able to bring our attention to what we are doing. So for this simple test, you could sit down and you could focus on your breathing with a pen and paper. Every time your mind wanders, mark how many times your mind wanders over the course of 3 minutes. And as you start bringing breathing practice into your way of life, look at the impact it's having on your attention span. Because if you can hold your attention on your breathing, you can hold your attention on any task. If you cannot hold your attention on your breathing, you're not likely to be able to hold your attention on any task. Now, functional breathing is more than just taking that deep breath. And it starts with breathing in and out through the nose. And the nose is the only organ that is serving a purpose in terms of breathing. By reducing breathing volume, we can help to improve the biochemistry of our breathing. We can help to improve our blood circulation, our oxygen delivery, and we can also help to stimulate the vagus nerve. By breathing through the nose, we can help to increase recruitment of the diaphragm breathing muscle. And there's a connection between the diaphragm and the emotions. But the diaphragm breathing muscle is also very important for stabilization of the spine and for gas exchange to take place. It's better to breathe low than to breathe shallow. Resonance frequency breathing is bringing in slow breathing to bring a balance in the autonomic nervous system. Now, all three dimensions of breathing will help to bring a balance of the autonomic nervous system. Because if we are overstimulated and if we are in increased sympathetic drive, long term, it leads to exhaustion. And even though it has been very under-researched, one 2013 study published in Sweden showed that 35 individuals with burnout syndrome, of which corporate stress was a major contributor, all 35 individuals had hyperventilation syndrome. They were breathing harder and they were breathing faster. So even though stress impacts your breathing, if we have quite a significant stress in our life, that will change our breathing. And even when the stress is removed, we can continue to have dysfunctional breathing patterns and will keep us stuck in that fight or flight response. So the hierarchy of breathing, in and out through the nose, your mouth does nothing in terms of the breath. There is no part of the mouth which is devoted to breathing. Your mouth is simply an emergency route. If you're really caught for breath, you have your mouth, but your nose does all of the work. How many of you are waking up with a dry mouth in the morning? Likely to be about 50% of those of you who are listening to me. And if you're waking up with a dry mouth in the morning, you are not likely to feel refreshed when you woke up. And I was like this all the way through school and university and in the corporate world. And then we were expected to be able to work to the absolute best of our ability. But if you don't have sleep, you don't reach your potential. Light breathing is about breathing less. Slow breathing is about changing the respiratory rate. And deep breathing is about improved recruitment of the diaphragm. And the elephant in the room that I spoke about when it comes to sleep is mouth breathing. You can do all of the sleep hygiene in the world. You can switch off your devices. You can have a wonderfully cool bedroom, airy bedroom, silent bedroom, dark bedroom. But if you have your mouth open, you are not going to get to the deep sleep. And it's deep sleep that is necessary for recovery. And to help down-regulate before sleep. Because with breathing, we can upregulate. And you can upregulate by hyperventilation or by doing long breath holds. But you can also down-regulate. And down-regulate is by having a really light and slow breathing. Make sure that your mouth is closed during sleep. Train your tongue to rest in the roof of the mouth because your tongue has got two places to be. It's either in the roof of the mouth or it can be falling into the airway or encroaching on the airway. With a narrower airway, we are more likely then to experience what's called obstructive sleep apnea. Work to improve your BOLT score. With a higher BOLT score, your breathing is lighter during sleep, your breathing is slower, your breathing is lower, there's less turbulence. I'm going to come off this share now and I'm going to go through the exercises with you. And I will describe the exercises and I would like you to practice them. The first one that I'm going to do is to show you how to improve blood flow to the brain. The second one that I'm going to bring in is box breathing, just out of interest. This is something that helps to bring a balance in the autonomic nervous system. And this is a technique that's used by special forces going into a difficult situation. We're also going to do breathe light to help improve blood flow and oxygen delivery, but also to stimulate the vagus nerve. And this is the exercise to down-regulate before sleep. We're also going to use a breathing technique to help activate your relaxation response, to bring a balance in the autonomic nervous system. And of course, when stress strikes, so here, for example, you have a contrary customer, and the contrary customer is giving out to the teller. And the teller is not surrendering his attention to the contrary customer. The teller is listening to the contrary customer, but the teller is bringing his attention inwards. And he's taking a very soft, slow, gentle breath coming into the nose, and a really relaxed and a slow and a gentle exhalation. And this way, the teller is not going to react to the mood of the customer. Of course, the teller will perform better because the teller will be clear-minded and able to deal better with the situation, to remain calm and focused. So again, think of the speed of your exhalation. It's not the inhalation. During the inhalation, the foot is taken off the pedal. It's the exhalation that is completely under the body's relaxation response. And whenever you have a really slow and relaxed and soft exhalation out through the nose, your body is telling the brain that everything is okay. So even though the customer is angry, the teller's body is telling the brain that everything is okay, and the teller is not going to go into that fight or flight response. Now, if you're highly stressed, we can do small breath holds. So I'm going to come out of this and I'll guide you through the exercises. So the first exercise to help to improve blood flow to the brain, and don't do this exercise if you're pregnant. And if you have anxiety or panic disorder, go easy, because this is a stressor exercise. And I deliberately started off with kind of a stressor exercise just for you to open up your nose and to show you how to increase blood flow. I would like you to stand up with this. Now, if you can't stand up, you can do it sitting down. So I'm going to imagine that you're able to stand up. I would like you to take a normal breath in and out through your nose and pinch your nose and hold your nose and walk for about 10 to 15 paces, holding your breath. Or if you're sitting down, you could take a normal breath in and out through your nose, and hold your breath, and gently nod your head up and down until you feel a moderate air hunger. But then let go, but breathe in through your nose. Anybody with nasal obstruction, if you have a stuffy nose, or if you have hay fever, or if you have asthma, you don't just have a stuffy nose. You are more likely to be tired. So what we're doing here is to help open up the nose, but also to help improve blood flow to the brain. And again, take a normal breath in through your nose and out through your nose, and pinch your nose and hold your nose, and walk for about 10 to 15 paces, holding your breath. And the proof of breathing exercises are, will it help to change your physiology? Now remember that breath holds and hyperventilation are a stressor. Many people, you need a combination, not just to stress the body and mind, but also to relax the body and mind, because then we can help to bring balance in the autonomic nervous system. So we do this about 3 or 4 times, and then I will do the stronger exercise and you'll feel your nose opening up. So again, whenever you're ready, take a normal breath in through your nose, out through your nose, pinch your nose and hold your nose, and walk 10 to 15 paces, holding your breath, and then to let go, to breathe in through your nose, and breathe normal then for about a minute or so. Now, this exercise also can be very good for helping to calm the mind. When the mind is racing, it can be difficult to pay attention to your breathing. And people with a predisposition towards anxiety often find it difficult to pay attention to their breathing. You don't have to always pay attention to your breathing. By doing gentle breath holds, you can change states without having to pay attention to your breathing. So again, normal breath in and out, and pinch your nose and hold, and walk for 10 to 15 paces, holding your breath, and then to let go and to breathe in through your nose. So that was a few easy breath holds. And now what I want to do is I want to ramp it up again. But again, don't do this if you're pregnant, and don't do it if you've got panic disorder or anxiety. If you have panic disorder and anxiety, the last exercise that we just did is perfectly suitable for you, because it's important that you gear up according to the response and feedback from your body. There's no point in overdoing it, and breathing is powerful. So you have to kind of, do it accordingly to how your body is responding. So I'm going to upregulate. Take a normal breath in through your nose and out through your nose, and pinch your nose and hold your nose, And now what I would like you to do is to fast walk and jog, holding your breath. So it's a normal breath in and out through your nose, pinch your nose and hold. And now start fast walking and go into a light jog, holding your breath. And keep jogging or fast walking and keep going until you feel a relatively, a moderate to strong air hunger. You will feel involuntary contractions of the diaphragm. Surrender into the discomfort. And when you feel that you need to let go, but breathe in through your nose. Now, as you're holding your breath, nitric oxide is pooling inside the nasal cavity. You're carrying this nitric oxide into your lungs. Nitric oxide helps to open up your airways. And the other thing from a psychological point of view with this is you're deliberately putting your body and mind into a state of discomfort. And you're training the body and mind to deal with discomfort. Because the feeling of air hunger is a very primordial feeling. But do it with a controlled dose. So now, whenever you're ready again, take a normal breath in through your nose and out through your nose, and pinch your nose and hold your nose, and start walking or jogging, holding your breath. And relax into the air hunger. And again, this exercise specifically, will help to open up your nose, open up your airways, and increase blood flow to the brain. It's a stressor. So from a physiological point of view for physical exercise, we often do this with athletes in terms of sprinting, etc. And there's other aspects to it, spleen contraction. Your kidneys, your liver becomes hypoxic. It synthesizes a hormone called erythropoietin, which in turn will cause maturation of red blood cells in the bone marrow. So there's other stuff going on, but just in terms of opening up your nose, we're going to do it one last time. So whenever you're ready, take a normal breath in through your nose and out through your nose, and pinch your nose and hold your nose. And now start walking or jogging, holding your breath. And keep just gently relaxing into your breath hold. So you feel the involuntary contractions of the diaphragm. Bring a feeling of surrender to your body and mind. And continue holding the breath until you feel a reasonably, moderate to strong air hunger. And then let go, but breathe in. There should be nothing extreme. And you should be able to recover your breathing within about 2 to 3 breaths. Now, most of you with nasal obstruction now, you will start to notice your nose opening up. And the one thing about the human nose is that the more you use it, the better it works. And if you breathe through your nose, it will change your physiology. But if you're breathing through your mouth breathing activates the upper chest. Mouth breathing is faster breathing. Mouth, upper chest breathing, and faster breathing is fight or flight. And I would also say to you this, if you're giving a presentation, don't let your breathing give you away. I've seen so many people giving a presentation and their breathing gets harder and faster and they are sighing more and mouth breathing more. And what is it telling the audience? It's telling the audience that you're not comfortable in that situation. So you can imagine going into a job interview. Don't let your physiology give you away. Before you go into the job interview, spend some time, you're sitting down, and use breathing techniques as a means of regaining composure. If you're feeling ramped up, how do you down-regulate? So with this exercise here, I'm going to have you put one hand on your chest and one hand just above your navel. Now, of course, if you're sitting outside a job interview, you don't have to have your hand on your chest and tummy. I'm just doing it for awareness. And in terms of changing states, now what we're going to do is we're going to down-regulate. I would like you to bring your attention just to the airflow coming inside your nose. And I would like you to take a really soft, gentle breath coming into your nose, and a relaxed, and a slow, and a gentle exhalation. And I also need you to use this as a measurement of your capacity to hold your attention. Feel the airflow coming in and out of your nose. You're feeling the slightly colder air coming in, and you're feeling the slightly warmer air leaving your nose. Gently soften your breathing. So during the inhalation, can you slow down the speed of the inhalation, almost that you are hardly breathing at all? And at the top of the inhalation, bring a total feeling of relaxation to the body and have a relaxed and a slow and a gentle exhalation. And then take a really soft and slow and gentle breath coming into your nose. At the end of the inhalation, bring a total feeling of relaxation to the body and have a relaxed and a slow and a gentle exhalation. Your breathing movement now should have reduced by about 30%. So the objective here is breathe less air. And by breathing less air, carbon dioxide accumulates in your blood. And as carbon dioxide accumulates, it will help to dilate your blood vessels. It will also help to increase oxygen delivery, and it will also help to stimulate the vagus nerve. So again, take a really soft and slow, gentle breath coming into your nose. And at the end of the inhalation, bring a total feeling of relaxation to the body and allow a relaxed and a slow and a gentle exhalation. So if somebody was looking at your breathing, there should be about 30% less movement. Don't hold your breath. Don't tense up the body to restrict your breathing. Just gently soften your breathing. So you're sitting outside the door, you're about to go into an interview, your heartbeat is elevated, your breathing is faster, you don't want to be going in that fight or flight response. Bring your attention inwards and take a really soft and slow, gentle breath in, and a relaxed and a slow and a gentle breath out. And all it takes is 90 seconds to down-regulate. 90 seconds. And remember the podcast with Dr. Rangan Chatterjee that we spoke about earlier. When he was talking to Dr. Rahul, Dr. Rahul said, when I get into a tricky situation, the first thing I do is prevent myself from hyperventilating. When you get into a tricky situation, the first thing you should do is prevent yourself from hyperventilating. How do you do that? Bring your attention onto the breath. Take a really soft, gentle breath coming into your nose. And the key is to have a relaxed and a prolonged and a slow exhalation. Underbreathe. So you're doing that correctly if you feel air hunger. And I would like you to spend about 30 seconds to a minute more doing it. Now, of course, if the air hunger gets a little bit too much for you, just take a rest. Or if you have involuntary contractions of the diaphragm, it means that the air hunger has gone a little bit too far, and take a rest. So it's a very simple exercise. You're taking a really soft and a slow and a gentle breath coming into your nose. And at the end of the inhalation, you're bringing a total feeling of relaxation to the body. And you're having a relaxed and a slow and a gentle breath out. So in terms of your physiology here, you are calming the body and mind, even though you feel a slight air hunger, which can be in itself a little bit uncomfortable, but you're improving blood flow, you're improving oxygen delivery, and now take a rest. So with practice, and it can take a little bit of practice, you mightn't have got it straight off there, and I will do it again in a little while. Pay attention to the temperature of your fingers. Were you able to influence your blood circulation by breathing less air? Not just because you had your hands against your body. You could put your hands out in front of you on a table and breathe less air to see if you can improve the temperature of your hands. It's very common with people with dysfunctional breathing patterns to have cold hands and cold feet. And it's not just the blood vessels in the hands that are constricted when your breathing is a little bit faster and harder. It's blood vessels throughout the body. And we have 70,000 miles of it. Also, when you do that exercise and you're having a really soft breath in and a relaxed and a slow and a gentle breath out, pay attention to the amount of saliva in the mouth. Has your mouth got drier? Is the mouth the same? Or have you got increased watery saliva in the mouth? Whenever we get into a stress response, it's a fight or flight. The body and mind, it's not a time for rest and it's not a time for digest. It's a time for getting out of the situation. Our mouth goes dry. Whenever we are in a rest and digest response, the body is prepared for the digestion of food. An increased watery saliva is a sign that the body is prepared for the digestion of food. You have just stimulated the vagus nerve. You have dampened the stress response and you have activated the body's relaxation response. What happens when you stimulate the vagus nerve? This nerve that is wandering throughout the human body. 80 to 90% of nerve fibers are from the body up to the brain. And by stimulating the vagus nerve secretes a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. And acetylcholine causes slowing down of the heart. And when the heart rate is slowing down, the brain interprets that the body is safe. Because remember, throughout our evolution, whenever we were confronted with a difficult situation, most often than not, it involved physical exercise. We had to get out of the environment. So we have evolved to deal with a difficult situation, to react to that with fight or with flight. And it served us, but it's not serving us now. Because now we get into a difficult situation and we're in an office environment, or we're in a school environment, or we're in a family environment, whatever environment we're in. We need to be able to change our breathing to change states. The next exercise that I'm going to bring in, just out a little bit of interest, is box breathing. And box breathing was designed, it's also called tactical breathing. And it's still used to this day with special weapons and tactics and Navy SEALs. And it's designed to bring a balance in the autonomic nervous system. So I'm going to have you breathe in for 4 seconds and hold for 4, and breathe out for 4 and hold for 4, and breathe in for 4 and hold for 4. However, you should not hear your breathing, and your breathing should be in and out through the nose. Now, you could have your hands either side of your lower ribs, because it is important to breathe low. So earlier on, we spoke about breathing light, but also you could have your hands either side of your lower ribs, and as you breathe in, you want to gently feel that your ribs are moving outwards. And as you breathe out, to feel that your ribs are moving inwards. But with this exercise, actually, I'm going to have you breathe in for 4 seconds, but be conscious, not necessarily breathing shallow. Holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding for 4. So whenever you're ready, to breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 4. Okay, so that's tactical breathing. So the very first exercise that we did today involved walking initially for 10 to 15 paces. And we did that about 3 or 4 times. And then we ramped it up. And I had you do a fast walk and a jog, holding the breath. It's a stressor. Okay, so that's changing your physiology. That's stressing you out a little bit. And there's a number of things happening. But one of those things is that it's generating a feeling of discomfort, and you're training the body and mind to deal with discomfort. The next exercise that we did was one hand on chest, one hand just above the navel. And you're really slowing down your breathing, taking a really soft and slow, gentle breath in through your nose, and a relaxed and a prolonged and a gentle exhalation. So that exercise is that's targeting the biochemistry of your breathing. It's helping to improve blood circulation, but it's also helping to down-regulate. So the exercise involving slow breathing is very important whenever you're feeling ramped up. And also, remember the angry customer and the teller. The angry customer is there. Bring your attention inwards. And you could, for example, breathe in for 4 seconds and out for 6 seconds. Or you could just take a very soft breath in through your nose and a really relaxed and slow, gentle exhalation. So remember the speed of the exhalation. If you have a really fast breath out, it's a stressor. But if you have a really slow and relaxed and prolonged exhalation, it's relaxing the body and mind. And then that last exercise is box breathing, and that's to help bring a balance in the autonomic nervous system. Now, I would go one step further. It's very important to have your mouth closed during sleep. And for about 22 years, I've been using tape across my lips. Now, before you think of it, you might think that wearing tape around the mouth or surrounding the mouth is very much left of field. It's becoming now more acceptable to use a support around the mouth than it was 20 years ago. And there are different products on the market. One that you can buy in any chemist is 3M 1-inch micropore tape. There's also lip seal tape. There's different tapes on Amazon, for example. And our own tape then is what's called Myo tape. Now, I don't have it to hand, but basically it's a tape that surrounds the lips to bring the lips together. So if you're uncomfortable with actually putting a tape across your lips, Myo tape is the one that surrounds the lips, bringing the lips together to help ensure nasal breathing. But I would start off with this. Whenever you do your physical exercise, switch to nose breathing. Because by breathing in and out through your nose during physical exercise, even if it's walk or a jog and low to moderate intensity exercise, nasal breathing will increase oxygen uptake in the blood. Nasal breathing will increase oxygen delivery. Nasal breathing is better recruitment of the diaphragm. Nasal breathing during physical exercise will help to improve your tolerance to carbon dioxide. And that in turn will lead to less breathlessness during physical exercise. So when you first switch to nose breathing during physical exercise, the air hunger is stronger. But this is good because you're adding an extra load onto the body. And there's an adaptation that will take place. Typically, it takes about 5 to 6 weeks. But if you continue to do your physical exercise with your mouth closed, those adaptations that take place is that your breathing will be lighter for the same intensity of physical exercise, but your recovery is much better. And also the benefits will carry on after the physical exercise. Because I understand that, people can be very time poor. How do you bring this into your way of life? How do I bring it into my way of life? Well, a half an hour ago, I went for an hour's walk. So I spoke with Brian at about 9:30 this morning. We finished up at about 10 o'clock, and about 10:15, I went out for a walk, and I did it for a good hour at a brisk pace, out in the fresh air, and using also the countryside as a means of helping to bring a stillness to the mind. Because I would start off with the breath and improving sleep. And I do wear tape around my mouth as well to bring my lips together. I've been doing this for many, many years. I wrote a paper that was published in the journal Clinical Medicine in January of 2021. I wrote it with 2 ear, nose, and throat doctors, looking at the application of functional breathing to the phenotypes of obstructive sleep apnea. Now, obstructive sleep apnea and sleep disorder breathing is affecting productivity and quality of life. But I will go in saying this. The biggest impact that we can do is change our states. And I don't want to be ramped up all of the time because I know long term it's going to lead to exhaustion, that the human body cannot take stress all of the time. And the one thing about having your attention on the breath, and especially slowing down the exhalation, is that you can help to bring a calmness. But the other thing is that you're training the brain, because you're training the brain to hold attention. And we as human beings, we communicate with life through our 5 senses. Any primary school kid is going to tell us that. Through sight, we communicate with life. Through taste, through smell, through touch, through hearing. And it's very important that we can fully bring our senses into the present moment. If you went to a Michelin star restaurant, and if somebody presented you with a beautiful plate of food, but if your attention is stuck in your head, you're not seeing what's on the plate. As you eat it, you are not tasting it because your attention is not in your mouth. It's not on taste. Your attention is stuck in your head. You're not smelling the food. You're not seeing the environment around you. You're not feeling the texture. You might as well be handed a bowl of cornflakes. So what I would say is that the benefits, and it's my own personal practice of putting it in, has been I would say one of the best things that I ever did in my life. And I came across it by accident. And I read it. It was from a newspaper article, the Irish Independent or the Irish Times, I'm not sure which one. And it was about the importance of nose breathing. But it's also important about changing breathing patterns to change states. And it helps to improve your intuition. It makes you more creative, but it gives you the resilience to help deal with stress and difficult situations. And the highs don't be so high, the lows don't be so low, and life is softer. And it's nice to be stuck in that place. So I would say that this is not just for the workplace, this is for life in general, because so many of us, myself included, I spent the first 25, 26, 27 years of my life fully stuck in my head. And it was so frustrating just to do mindfulness when my sleep was dreadful and when my breathing physiology was stuck in that fight or flight. We have to get back to basics. We have to improve sleep quality and we have to improve breathing physiology. So, Brian, I'm going to leave a few minutes for questions.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, Patrick, I was just going to come in there. I mean, the depth, the level of detail you've gone to there is phenomenal. I think I'll certainly be watching this back, and what I learned anyway from attempting those exercises is I've a lot of work to do on my breathing, which I would have thought was
Well,
normal. But
it's,
there's
we're all exposed to the same things,
yeah,
Brian. We a sedentary lifestyle, stress
mhm,
levels, talking, genetics, and we've only touched the tip of the iceberg with this. I
yeah,
wrote a book to give you an example. This is one of the books that came out last year. It's one of my own books. It's 190,000 words. Now, how, you talk about breathing, but the scope of this and the potential is amazing.
yeah,
And I wrote another book on atomic focus because I really feel that breathing has not been delivered as the way it should have been delivered,
hmm
because it has a tremendous potential to help a lot of people. And there are many kids in schools and universities and the workplace, and they have not got the ability to deal with difficult situations. Simple things.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much we could go into there. I might go to, first of all, I know you've worked with elite special forces, Navy
Yes.
SEAL, snipers, as you mentioned. There's one
Yes.
kind of elite group on the call here. A couple of questions coming in from, I don't know if you've worked with this elite group before, but working mothers with young children. And they're
Yes.
talking about, I like the foundation you had in the revised Maslow's hierarchy of needs, with the importance of sleep and deep sleep. What
Yes.
if let's say there's by no fault of your own breathing, that because of the young children, your sleep is interrupted? Are there any kind of breathing techniques or habits that for during the day and towards the nighttime that can support, let's say, that group?
I would come back to the same thing. We want to downregulate before sleep, and we can do that by really slowing down our breathing. In terms of sleep hygiene, it has been overlooked. And I'm not talking just about slow breathing, but I'm talking about really softening the speed of the breath, about under breathing. Because if you can under breathe to the point that you have increased watery saliva, you know that your body is ready for rest, not just for digest, but for
Mhm.
rest. But so many of us are overstimulated, and emails and family life have contributed to this. So we need to downregulate by breathing light. But I would also say get them out taped. It's really, really important. And it's so simple. And I know it sounds a little bit left of field, but if you're waking up with a dry mouth in the morning, you're not getting the deep sleep. I used to sleep 10 hours a day.
Mhm.
I would still wake up feeling,
Yeah.
tired.
Well, so I do get that. I get the dry mouth. And a couple of people had sent lovely comments in advance of this and had mentioned they've taken some of your courses, and they all kind of highlighted the taping of the mouth. Uh, is that the way to avoid that dry mouth initially?
It's
Is
the
it kind of the
best way.
practice the best
It's
way?
the
Okay,
only way, because when you're asleep, you're asleep. Now, it's not that
exactly.
everybody needs to tape up.
Yeah, yeah,
It's only if you're waking up with a moist mouth. But
sure.
I would say, because start bringing start bringing in breathing practice into your everyday work and everyday life. And the more you breathe through your nose works better, but your breathing then becomes lighter as well. And then you'll have lighter breathing during sleep. And so, for example, snoring. Mouth snoring stops once the mouth is closed, because the mouth snore goes as follows. If you have your mouth closed, you can't mouth snore. Nose snoring significantly reduces when you breathe lighter and slower. So the turbulence in the upper airway is going to be influenced by not just the anatomy of the airway, but also about flow. And even going as far as obstructive sleep apnea. You know, there's plenty of men here, middle-aged, my age group, and they're stopping breathing during sleep. It's driving up blood pressure, it's elevating the heart rate, and it's putting them into this increased sympathetic stress response. And of course, people have their own devices and they're tracking their heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is an objective measurement of vagal tone. It's about balance in the autonomic nervous system. And today we spoke about light breathing, slow breathing, nose breathing. And again, it's just a little bit of a flavor, but that will help you to bring in balance.
Yeah. I didn't know. So that's an interesting selling point, the fact that it can help reduce snoring as well. There could be people going out there buying gifts for partners now off the back of that. And for anyone actually who wants to just follow up a little bit more on your work, you have an excellent TED Talk, and it's brilliantly named Shut Up and Change Your Life. And of course, you touch on that in that session. Can I just talk about the nose breathing while exercising? I've got a social enterprise I promote. It's about promoting the importance of resistance exercise in the great outdoors. It's all body weight stuff. It's light enough, but people do get up to a fairly high intensity. And actually, when I heard you on Pat Divley a few years ago, I started trying to encourage people to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose where possible. And that can be difficult when you're exercising, especially in the outdoors and cold mornings. In Ireland, when the nose gets blocked up. Any advice there? Is it just a slow trying? You're aiming for the slow, steady breath. It's not a deep breath, I think you were mentioning, but it's light, low, and slow. And then if you can, it's out through the nose as well. Is that right?
Yeah, like when it comes to physical exercise, the nose is the only organ that's actually conditioning any air in terms of coming into the body. Mm-hmm. And initially it's a bit tougher because the air hunger is stronger. But the air hunger is stronger because of the increase of carbon dioxide in the blood. Because it's carbon dioxide that's the primary stimulus to breathe. But as carbon dioxide increases in the blood, hemoglobin, which is the main carrier of oxygen, releases oxygen more readily. So nose breathing assists with increased oxygen delivery to the tissues. Nose breathing also assists with vasodilation and open blood vessels. Nose breathing is assisting with the airways opening up. So, yes, you might not be able to do 100% of your work rate intensity when you first switch from mouth to nose breathing. Mm-hmm. In a couple of pilot studies, it's been shown that you can achieve 85% and 90%. Now, what you could do is you can also get nasal dilators. So, for example, if you put one finger here and here, and we have them, they're small little plastic devices, you put them into the nose, and they help open up the nasal airway. So if you felt that there was any risk of the nose getting stuffy. Now, the two things that help to open up the human nose is holding of the breath, the first exercise that we did, mm-hmm. but also physical exercise with the mouth closed.
Right.
So the more you use your nose, the better it works. And the other thing is, I say that the benefits of nasal breathing during physical exercise, they will continue beyond the physical exercise. And also nasal breathing is with better recruitment of the diaphragm. With greater recruitment of the diaphragm, it's providing stabilization for the spine, because 50% of people with lower back pain have dysfunctional breathing. And 75% of the anxiety population have dysfunctional breathing. Who is teaching these individuals with mental health and showing them how to calm the central nervous system? Mm-hmm. They are not being taught. They're told, go and take a few deep breaths for themselves. And in actual fact, it could be the worst information they've been told.
Right. Interesting. For the guys listening in and looking in that, let's say they want to get started, and I think, is it 9 books you have now at this stage?
Yes.
Where should they start? Is it with the Oxygen Advantage? And then is it almost like a progression in terms of the books, or could people choose whatever book they wish?
Oh, you could choose whichever one. In actual fact, I would think that the Atomic Focus one is probably the easiest one, because I kind of wrote it with somebody with poor attention span in mind. So what I did was I kept the text very big, whereas the other book is really for a nerd, a breathing nerd.
Right,
And
right.
I needed to kind of take breathing away from woo woo and away from where airy fairy, and to show that there's actual physiology, that it's grounded here, you know.
Yeah.
So I think atomic focus would be probably the simplest one to start off with,
Okay.
and the exercise are there.
Brilliant, yeah. And you're clearly doing something right in terms of the books, because I had a quick look online. There's at least 5,000 reviews of your books online, probably more, and most of them are all 5 stars. So you're clearly doing something right in that regard.
I've been blessed, Brian. We have
Yeah,
a team of 11 staff,
right.
and we're in 50 countries plus.
Incredible.
And I'm just building a new 4,000 square foot training room.
That's
So,
all
you
in
know,
Cullen, isn't it, in County
this is all
Galway?
in my Cullen, and we're
Fantastic.
developing an app we're putting $100,000 into it.
Well,
So I have an amazing team of people
yeah.
around us. But you know what? As somebody said to me, it took me 1 year to become an overnight. It took me, sorry, 20 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah,
And I'm really fortunate. I just found something that I absolutely love to do. And yeah, it took a while to get going.
yeah.
And I've been working full time. So, you know,
Fantastic. Well, when
yeah.
you mentioned that at the beginning, the 20 years, I
Yes.
I was reminded of kind of Dan Pink's, his new Motivation 3.0. So you mean you've clearly developed a mastery in this subject. You have the autonomy, of course, of your work, but there's a real purpose there for what you're doing. So you have the 3 drivers there that he talks about, Motivation 3.0. So that kind of struck me when you mentioned that, and no question, you've developed a mastery in this subject.
Yes. And the
Before
other
we let
thing
you
is
go on,
that
sorry,
in
Patrick.
terms
Yeah.
of working in a situation like this, I use the same tools in my personal life,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gone beyond the workplace, you know.
Yeah.
So it's really something nice. I think everybody should give some consideration to being able to, you know, bringing attention into the present moment and going beyond mindfulness, but delving into their sleep first and working with
Right.
that.
Excellent advice. And for people then that really want to dive deep with yourself, what's the process? Maybe they come across you through a book. You do a series of courses then as well. Can people go on to be a practitioner? Is it in the oxygen advantage in your method? Is that how it works?
Yeah, we have instructor training taking place pretty much every 6 weeks.
Right.
It started yesterday, was the first day one, and there will be another one in 6 weeks, and then we will have a live event face to face because of COVID. It kind
Yeah,
of knocked that one.
of course.
I've got a few trips internationally as well, so travel has kicked in again, which
Yeah.
is not necessarily I'm looking forward to it. I'd much rather be stuck here
Yeah.
with my feet planted on the ground. So yeah, just if you go to oxygenadvantage.com, that's
Okay.
much more about performance-based techniques.
Right.
And Buteco Clinic then is more about sleep disorder breathing, working with children, for example.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important that children are taught the importance of nasal breathing. And I'll just kind of leave you with this one because Karen Bonnock did a study in Stratford upon Avon in 2011 over a 6-year period, and it was published in the journal Pediatrics. Children with sleep disorder breathing at age 5, if untreated, these kids had a 40% increased risk of special education needs by age 8.
Mm-hmm.
The brain grows during the formative years, and for a child to have normal brain development, they need deep sleep. And it's so important. And if anybody is looking for science, put in Bonnock, Bonuck, and Stratford upon Avon,
Mm-hmm.
and sleep disorder breathing, and I'm sure you'll pull up the paper on it.
Fantastic. And one final thing from me then, a member of the community contacted me during the week when they knew you were coming on now. They weren't able to join us live today, but they sent me a note saying, I'm just returning to work after medical leave for long COVID since September. And I just wanted to let you know that there were times when Patrick McKeown's breathing techniques literally kept me alive. There were days when I couldn't get to see a doctor or was really having difficulty breathing, and his Buteco breathing technique was the only way I could get oxygen into my lungs. I'm very grateful to him for those YouTube videos when I was really struggling.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
We put up all of the videos for children are free on YouTube.
Right.
and all of the videos for COVID. And one video that I put out in March of 2020, just at the cusp of COVID, it's now had over 1 million views.
Wow.
Now, it's very poorly done. The lighting was terrible. I was even feeling a little bit nervous going on because we had oversubscribed. I didn't have my laptop plugged in, and everything that could go wrong went wrong. And that same video has still had 1 million views. So,
No way.
you know, it's just, I was in the field anyway, and I didn't
Yeah.
want to, I wanted to kind of put it out there for people
Yeah.
as opposed to trying to do something commercial with it.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, listen, Patrick, thanks so much for joining us and for sharing so much today. Like, I know I'll be watching this back. I'm sure many others will as well. So is it oxygenadvantage.com? That's the place to go?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Listen, Patrick, best luck. We'll have to come down and check out that new training facility once it's up and running. Looking forward to that.
Many thanks. Thanks so much, Brian.
Take care, Patrick.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, everyone, for joining in as well.